All right, friends and fans, I am back with a video. As you can see by the background, I am not in my usual location. I'm not in the shop. I'm actually at home, enjoying the end of a Veterans Day. And that being said, I want to take a moment and just say real quickly to all my fellow brothers and sisters, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. Those who have gone before me, thank you for all you've done. Those who have come behind me, thank you for all that you continue to do. You're not forgotten, and just wanted to give you a real quick salute. And Godspeed. Hope you come home soon. Happy Veterans Day. All right, that being said, those of you guys who know me, personal basis, face-to-face or what have you, I've had a lot of questions from people that I've talked to and that I work with and that have been in my shop, and asking me how I got involved with some of the stuff that I do. Those of you who don't know, I know I have a whole whopping 5 subscribers to my channel, so I'm not out there, as it were. But those of you who might be browsing through and don't know what I do mainly diagnostics. I do automotive AC repair, heating, that kind of thing, reprogramming of ECMs and TCMs, that sort of stuff. I don't do a lot of heavy, I say I don't do a lot of heavy and mobile mechanical stuff, but I end up doing it. And you'll find out if you get into this business and you have a shop of your own, you'll end up doing a lot of stuff that you don't normally do. Just because you have good customers that ask you if you can go ahead and do this for them and do that for them, and you oblige. So that being said, anyways, I've had friends and fans and family members and people who know me that have asked me how I got started, what started me on the path that I am on. To say that, I would say that where I started doing that diagnostic and troubleshooting and that thing was from the Army. When I first got in the Army, I mean, when I was a young kid, I tore a bunch of electronic stuff apart. Very rarely did I ever get it put back together, but I was always making stuff that worked. I'd take speakers out of old radios and wire them up so that I could listen to music out of something else, that kind of a thing. But I think seriously, I got interested in it when I joined the military. I was in the Army, veteran. And in my Army MOS, I was a 31 Victor, which then later became a 31 uniform. 31 Victor was unit level communications maintainer. And if I remember right, 31 uniform was communications repair and advisor or something along those lines. Anyways, electronics, radios, antennas, that type of thing. And that's when I learned how to use a multimeter, read a schematic, do diagnostic troubleshooting trees. A lot of the main principles that I've used for years and years. I learned Ohm's law, Kirchhoff's law, just different things about how to calculate watts and a lot of stuff that when I was learning it, I just thought, yeah, I'm never going to use this. What's the point? And then lo and behold, I always end up going back to something in my training there somewhere, excuse me. So anyways, that's where I started. And I didn't, believe it or not, didn't have an interest really in automotive. I'd grown up, and I've shared this before in some of my other videos. I grew up with my dad, the time I spent with him, working in his shop a little bit, but it didn't really appeal to me. It wasn't the thing for me. I got into mechanics, as some of us do, out of necessity. I had a piece of junk car, and because of that, I had to learn how to work on it because, when you're in the Army and you're a private, you don't have a lot of money and you don't have a lot of options. So you make do with what you have and you make it work. And so I spent a lot of long distance phone calls on the phone to my dad, my dad, my grandfather, those that I could, rely on to give me good information. And I learned by doing. So this video, I don't know, this is kind of we'll see where this goes. Those of you who know me well. I have a lot of interest. And so what kind of sparked me to go ahead and put this video out was I've been watching some other YouTube videos lately for a completely different field of interest that I have, which is outdoorsmanship, woodsmanship, craftsman, or, what they call survival skills and that type of a thing, just camping. And I love the outdoors, and there's certain channels I follow. Dave Canterbury is one of them. um, Survival Russia, a couple of others. And I enjoy watching these guys because they're modeling skills that are necessary for you to be able to survive in the wilderness. And one of the things that was said that kind of sparked me to relate that to automotive and electronics and that type of, one of the things that was said was that, it doesn't matter what tools you have. What matters is the skills that you have to use those tools. And I'll kind of clarify that a little bit by this. You can have the most expensive setup in the world, but if you don't know how to use it, it's just junk. It's of no value to you if you can't use it the way that it was intended because you never got the skills to use it the way it's meant to be. Excuse me. And then when I was listening to that being said, and it was in reference to the fact that there's a multitude of ways to be out in the wilderness and survive and thrive. Excuse me. And it doesn't have to do with whether or not you have the most expensive gear. It has to do with knowing the skill set that you have and then having the appropriate tooling to complement that skill set. That's literally the difference between just merely surviving or barely surviving or not surviving and thriving, which is, what most of us want to do when we go out in these excursions. So let's translate that into what I do on a daily and what some of you have said you want to do. And I've had some people that have asked me, I have a couple of people that I've kind of mentored, I guess you would say, as far as, getting into this business and where they want to go. And the first question I ask, and I'll ask you, and, you need to ask yourself is, where do you want to be within this industry? I don't think anybody joins this industry to be a lube tech for life. Nothing against lube techs. I'm grateful for the lube techs that are out there because without them, a lot of things wouldn't get done that needed to get done as far as oil changes and filter changes and grease and, lube tech. But that being said, nobody goes to a shop or to a job and says, hey, I want to be a lube tech for life. There's always that drive to do more. And there should be that drive to do more. If you don't have the drive to do more within that field, then find the field that you want to be in, because that's obviously not it. That's a whole nother conversation that I have had with others. So I will say this, decide what it is you want to do within this industry. I've had people that want me to teach them how to be better electronics troubleshooters and electrical troubleshooters when it comes to automotive and equipment and things like that. And I love teaching. I'm geared for that. And so the question I always ask them is, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? And I get this, bizarre look like, well, what do you mean? And the fact of the matter is, there's some other channels out there. There's some channels that I follow that I look up to, that they're at a level way beyond where I am. And they're the level that I am striving to get to. And I have to remind myself of that sometimes. Anyways, there's people on these channels that they're doing things that I want to learn how to do. But then there's some of these channels that I watch and they're doing things that I don't want to do because it's not where I want to go. And so when I ask people this, when I ask them, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? The question I'm asking them is, where do you want to be within this industry? Do you want to be a diagnostician, a tech? Do you want to be a heavy mobile equipment mechanic? Do you want to be a specialized diesel engine repair person? Where do you want to be within this industry? And nowadays within this industry, it is possible to select where you want to be and kind of have a niche. Now, depending on the shop you work in, you may be the guy that has to have that all around, and I encourage everyone to have an all around understanding, but you can pick a niche. And so for me, I chose to do things like automotive AC and heating, automotive diagnostics as far as electrical and troubleshooting, engine computer diagnostics, sensors, reprogramming of ECMs, TCMs, BCMs, and things like that. Because one, it interests me. I have a great interest in these things. And for two, there's just not a lot of people in this area where I'm at that actively engage in this, at least not that I'm aware of. I shouldn't say there aren't that many that I'm aware of. I'll state it that way. So that being said, I get asked all the time, well, what's your training? What's your background? What's your pedigree? Where did you get this information? Things like that. And that's fair questions. And so here I'm going to turn the camera around. I want to show you guys exactly where I've gotten a lot of this information, I guess you would say. So give me a second. Let me figure out how to do that. And we will. All right. So here is a representation of some of the books, study materials, things that I have gone through throughout the years. And I'll get into some of these briefly. And then it's important to note there's another stack of books here, which I will discuss in a moment. All right, so here we go. And the reason why I'm showing these books and the reason why I say this is important is because if you look at these books, there's a theme here for what it is that I do as an automotive technician. Specifically one who does automotive heating and air conditioning, electrical troubleshooting, that type of a thing. All right, so but we're going to start with one of the first books that I think I ever really kind of got into and started learning about. And this is an old book. It's the Illustrated Deluxe Edition of Auto Repair. And it's put out by a company that we actually had bought some encyclopedias from, my wife and I, because we were preparing for having little kids. And we thought little kids need encyclopedias so they can learn lots of cool things. And then along came the internet, and now we have a bunch of books. However, that being said, I love books. And this book, and I'm looking for a copyright date on this because I'm not sure, this is I want to say late. Oh, here we go. Copyright date on this is 1987 is the latest copyright date on this. And if you look, the first copyright date on that is 1977. So this has not does not have a lot of the modern computerized systems. In fact, very little. What it does, though, is it breaks down the basics of mechanical systems, cranks, cams, cooling systems, pistons, rings, rods, and does it very well. And then goes into rear ends and differentials and things like that. And I actually found this book to be pretty much invaluable when I was first starting out learning about different things, because there was a lot of this stuff that I just did not understand the concept of. Simple 4-cylinder engines, this thing to this day has been beneficial to me just in understanding, the 4-stroke engine. The adage is suck, squeeze, bang, blow, which is, of course, intake, compression, combustion, and exhaust, right? So first time I really kind of got a grasping under this is when I was looking at this diagram. So this is just a simple auto repair illustrated deluxe edition, and it's basic mechanics, basic to mid-level, not advanced, but mid-level. There's a lot of stuff in here, though, as far as automotive repair procedures and diagnostics, theory of operation, a lot of really good information in there. And that was one of the first books that I actually sat down and started reading through and then taking it out. And there's some pages in there. You can look on there's some grease on these. That's my greasy fingerprints right there on the pages. I have in my garage a huge collection of service manuals and Haynes manuals and Chilton's manuals, because I learned that I needed that for just about every vehicle I ever owned or bought, because there was a lot of useful information in there. So that was kind of my introduction to basic mechanics and mechanic skills, I guess you would say, and things like that. And then I started getting into, once I got into electrical troubleshooting and stuff like that, I got it pretty quickly. So this is another one of the books that I've had for a while now. Very, very good book on diagnosing electrical systems, charging systems, battery storage, starting systems, alternator systems. And then it even gets into things like fuel injection, electronic testing tools, storage batteries, ignition systems, primary and secondary, how a coil works. There was a lot of useful information in this book, right? A lot. Now, one of the books that I'm gonna really, really push on anyone, regardless of where you want to be in this field. If you want to just be a mechanic, does mechanical things, rebuilds engines, things like that, but you still need to have a basic understanding of electrical and be able to troubleshoot your way out of some simple things, I can't recommend this book highly enough. I'm telling you, I can't give it more than a thumbs up than I already am. It is a fantastic book. It is written in plain layman's terms, and it explains complex troubleshooting techniques and complex concepts in a way that just is entertaining for one, and is completely useful. I can't speak enough of this. I like this book so much, and the man who wrote it, I followed some of his stuff on YouTube or whatever, that I actually got another one of his books, which is Electrical Power Generation, which has to do with generators and being able to figure out generator power and stuff like that. I won't bore you too much with that because that'll kind of derail where we're at today. Anyways, if you want a basic understanding of electrical troubleshooting and just kind of where to start, I say get that book right there. Then I have this book here, and it's Getting to Know the Automotive Lab Scope. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. I've had this book for a long time, and I love this book. It is a great book. I recommend it highly for anybody who wants to get involved with automotive AC and heating. It is a very, very comprehensive book on automotive AC heating and air. I mean, very comprehensive. It gives you real world cases of vehicles that have come into shops that have been diagnosed correctly, have been diagnosed incorrectly, what the real fix was. It teaches you how to read gauges and how to understand how different systems operate, because there are more than just one system of automotive air conditioning out there. Different types of compressors, scroll compressors, multiple vane compressors, variable displacement compressors, different types of metering devices, different types of systems that are used to direct air. I mean, it is a great book. And there is by far probably a much newer edition than the 4th edition. So yeah, get this. If you want to be in automotive heating and air and you want to be good at what you do, you want to be at a professional level, get something like this. That's the truth. Then I have this book here, Engine Performance Diagnostics by Paul Danner. Those of you who know me know I'm a huge Scanner Danner fan. I love his his YouTube page, I should say. I am a subscriber to his online classes. It's a small monthly fee. He teaches out of Rosecrans Technical College in Pennsylvania. He is also a diagnostics guy for the local shops. He does what he teaches and teaches what he does. And he's very good at it. He's one of the people who I strive to get at that level. Then I've got this book here on next generation GM diesel engines. Let's see, what else have I not covered? Oh, this one here. Automotive Master Technician, Advanced Light Vehicle Technology. This is a newer book that I've just recently obtained and have started going through and getting familiar with some of the stuff that I'm weak in and re-emphasizing some of the stuff that I knew. And there's a reason behind that I'll explain maybe in some other video, but it's just, let's just say it's definitely fits my vein of where I'm going. Okay, so let's talk about this stack of books I have over here. And some of you guys may already know what these books are. When you see the T1 and the T3 and things like that, these are ASE test prep books, study guides. Those of you who know me know I've had some ASE certifications in the past, mainly for medium and heavy duty trucks and equipment, not necessarily for lighter automotive vehicles, although now that's mainly what I do is, you know, passenger vehicles and light automotive, stuff like that. Anyways, I am not here to debate or to give my opinion one way or the other as to whether or not ASE certifications are necessary. I have my opinion on that. Those of you who know me know what that is. I will say this. If you are a professional and you want to make a living at this professionally, then you should have no problem going out and obtaining the certifications that show you're a professional. And that's about all I'm going to say about that. So I have these books and I've read through a series of these. There's some that I still need to do. In fact, this one here is one of them, the gasoline engines one. So anyways, if you're interested in becoming a master technician, this is the road to that. Now, keep in mind, ASE certifications are not just simply read a book, take a test. And I know that is the big thing that a lot of people say. Well, it's not that hard to take a test. No, it's not. You can memorize a bunch of information, go in there and reiterate it on paper and pass a test. This is true. What a lot of people do not realize is in order to obtain that ASE certification right there, you also have to have 2 years of verified work experience. Now, is there a way around that? I'm sure there is. But for most of us who are legitimate and sincere, we have obtained that experience in addition to taking the tests and passing them. So enough said about that. These are just some of the things that I have read and studied in order to get at a level where I feel like I am proficient in what I do. I feel very confident in my abilities to diagnose, troubleshoot, replace, repair, do whatever is necessary for automotive heating and air conditioning on a multitude of vehicle systems. Not just because I read this book, and I want to make that clear. I don't think you just read books and then go and do. You read and do, and then you do, and then you read, and you do, and you make mistakes, and then you go back and you read and you figure out where you went wrong. And I think that's something that's not emphasized enough within this industry. I am very confident in my ability to diagnose electrical problems. I am not that confident in my ability yet to use an automotive lab scope to its fullest ability. And those of you who have no idea what that is or what that means, well, once you get to a level where you're ready to decide where you want to go, that is definitely, if you choose the diagnostic path to be a technician, to do troubleshooting diagnostics and stuff like that, that is definitely a piece of equipment that is in your future. And it should be. Now, that being said, do you need the most expensive scan tools and diagnostic equipment that is on the market? No. Would you like to have it? Sure. So would I. Do I own it? No, I don't. I have a diagnostic computer that I spent a bit of money for, and I've talked about that in other videos. The equipment that I use the most, believe it or not, is test lights, a pocket scope, a single channel oscilloscope, and a multimeter, and some test leads, some different breakout leads that I can plug into the connector and use the right terminal or the right pin. I use that more than anything else. I have some other tools that I have used. I have tools that I have bought that I thought, oh man, I'm going to use this like crazy, and they're still in the original packaging. That being said, start out with the skill set that you have and obtain the tools that are necessary to complement that skill set. Then become proficient, become professional with that skill set and that set of tools, and then move to the next level. I can't stress it enough. When I was in Iraq in 2010, I was very privileged to work. I was a civilian, and I was embedded with a unit for about 7 months, and I worked hand in hand with some military mechanics, and they were fine young men. One of the gentlemen that I worked with was very bright and had his eye on what he was going to do beyond the military. And one of the things he asked me one day, we were working on a vehicle, a piece of equipment, and he's like, okay, Greg, so, how much school did you have for this particular piece of equipment? And I started laughing. I pointed, I said, you're talking about this vehicle right here. He goes, yeah. I said, I never saw one of these before I came into this country, 8 months ago. And his jaw dropped open. And I said, here's the thing, and here's what I promise you. And I'm telling you folks this as well. Learn some basic skills. First of all, learn how to read a schematic or a wiring diagram. Second of all, learn how to use a multimeter for various functions, not just to test continuity of a wire, because that can lead you astray. That is a whole other topic that we don't have time for. Learn how to do voltage drop testing. Learn how to test diodes. Learn how to test capacitors with a multimeter. Learn how to use a test light. And there's a story I will tell, I promise, in a video coming about learning how to use a test light. And it's funny, and it's a story about me and the fact that I had forgotten something about a test light that a good friend of mine had to remind me of. Anyways, learn how to use a test light. And then learn the basic concepts of automotive electricity, 12 volt and 24 volt systems. If you have those systems learned when you get out of the military, I was talking to this young man, you will be head and shoulders above the majority of the people that will be applying to jobs that you're going to. Add to that some sort of a specialized training or certification, and you're well on your way. Now here's the thing, and I'm going to say this, and I know it's not going to be popular with some of you, and that's okay. If you don't have time to read and study, then you do not have time to become as proficient as you can be. And I know that is going to be like, sticking bamboo shoots under people's fingernails for some of you. But the fact of the matter is true. I have read each of these books, through them, different sections of them. Some of them I have read cover to cover. This one I read cover to cover. That one I read cover to cover. This one I read cover to cover. That one over there, I did not read cover to cover, but I've read through it in multiple areas and back and forth. That one there, like I said, I just obtained and I'm reading through. This one is it's not a weird book. It's not one that you read cover to cover. It's one that you actually take and you take it to the piece of equipment that it's about, which is an oscilloscope, and you actually do some experiments. So I'm in the process of going through this book. This one here, I have read through cover to cover, and I have gone through and gone back to different sections and things that I forgot and things that I need to remember. And I've been through this book so many times. Anyways, get on YouTube, find people that are doing this professionally. I can't stress that enough. Professionally, not someone who's hacking and slashing and I don't want to stereotype anybody, so I won't. You'll know when you're looking at somebody on a YouTube video, whether or not they're professional or they're not. Find somebody who is doing what you want to do at the level that you want to do it at, and follow them. Follow their example, and then set goals for yourself. If that's attend training, there's some seminars online. AV Tech, ADT. There's a bunch of places. Get on there, subscribe to different training programs. I have a specific scan tool made by MaxiSys Pro. I paid for a subscription program so that I could take a series of classes on how to use that diagnostic computer most effectively. And it was put on by the gentleman who taught the class was Ron Bilyeu, who is a professional in this field, has been a professional in this field for a number of years, and specifically knew how to use the tool that I had. And I paid money for that. You will need to pay money in order to gain your education. And I will end this by saying this. I have said this to customers for as long as I can remember. And I've said this to the couple of gentlemen that I have mentored. My customers don't pay for my education. They pay for my experience. I pay for my education. Now, education can come of one of three ways. You can pay for classes. You can attend some sort of a technical institute, something along those lines. You can pay for online classes. Or you can get out there and make a bunch of mistakes. They're all expensive in varying degrees. I do not recommend getting out there and just making a bunch of mistakes. You will make mistakes as you go along, but just keep in mind that if it's an educational mistake, you should pay for that, not your customer. All right. That's all I have for tonight. I know this kind of went long and hopefully it all made sense. But those of you who know me, you know my name, know my number, know my email address. You have questions, concerns, comments, get a hold of me. Let me know. We will discuss them. Those of you who don't know me, and this is maybe your first time watching, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of this. Again, happy Veterans Day to all of those who have served, and have a good day.